Hello, friends. On air from Nashville, it's me, Ruth Rosen.
And on air from Seattle, it's me, Tim Tackett. Welcome to the Let It Be podcast. On today's episode, we continue to focus on our journey series. We're going to be talking about being your authentic self on your journey. Today, we meet Henry, a TV personality known for his charisma. But behind the scenes, he is wrestling with how to live authentically. His environment has been pulling him off course from his journey, and today he's opening up with us about his struggle to align his public image with his genuine self. As you listen, consider your own path. What does it look like for you to stay true to who you are, even when the world pulls you in another direction? So, Ruthie, today,
we have a guest.
we have our first guest, and I am pumped.
And I'm excited that you are pumped. Yes. There's so much that I know that Henry wants to share and some of the struggles he's having. And I think that to have a conversation on being your authentic self sounds easy, but is it?
Not. It is not. It takes bravery, and you have to really be in tune and aware and practice focusing on it and catch yourself.
The topic, Tim, of authenticity, being authentic, is not always easily defined. It sounds easy, right? Authentic cuisine, authentic decor. But when we talk about authentic in ourselves, now that's a whole other dimension. So how would you define authentic, Tim?
Good question. I think being authentic is just being genuine and who you are and showing up not as you think others want you to show up, but just being yourself. I like to think of word association. So I think it's like you're reacting and you're just genuinely saying what comes into your mind.
Okay.
And
that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, thank you.
No, I love that. It's what automatically comes out without having to think about it.
Yeah. And also, I think you have to have a filter based on where you are in your environment.
But not everybody has a filter, or their definition of genuine could still be offensive or not appropriate.
Oh, yeah. I mean, think of like work, the jokes that I've told you on this show. I wouldn't
not
tell
on
those
the
at
show,
work.
behind the scenes. We had to delete all those, Tim.
Maybe
And
one day
then
we'll
they
have a
did make
special
me
cut
laugh.
for our listeners.
Do you think a lot of people struggle with the whole work authenticity because of reputations or promotions?
Yeah.
They're being respectful. And I think that I'd love to get into this further with you after we listen to what Henry has to say and conversate with him. And let's see what he touches on to see how me and you could maybe have some follow-up questions. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's great. This is a wonderful topic. It's one of my favorite things to think about. So let's dive in. Let's dive into our guest. Well, not dive into him, but that's so let's go to our guest.
That would be great.
Henry DiCarlo, thanks for joining us. I was reading over your bio, did a lot of reading about you, actually. You're a meteorologist, a sportscaster. You work for KTLA 5 Morning News, and you've been with the current company for over 25 years. Born and raised in Orange, Villa Park High School. You even went to California State University, but you did leave for a little while. It says you went to Mississippi, so that must have been a little bit of a culture shock for you to leave California and head to Mississippi.
Truth be told, I did graduate from Mississippi State, but they had an online program. And a lot of people in our business, a lot of people who are meteorologists have a degree from Mississippi State. They were the very first school to offer a program where you didn't have to physically be on campus. So I had to go there a couple of times. So to your point, it was a little bit of a culture shock. I'd have to go and give a presentation. But for the most part, I was still in California. Thank goodness.
Yeah, a little bit different weather. It's a different kind of hot.
Yep. And you can see that tan.
Sure.
You see that California tan.
It's hard to beat the weather here, that's for sure.
That's pretty nice. Yeah. So you've also done some emceeing. I actually went online and saw a lot of things that you've hosted, and a lot of golf tournaments, it looks like.
Yep.
Yes. Do a lot of golf tournaments, a lot of galas, but I think for me to really be effective for an organization, it has to be something where I have a connection, because then I'm doing more than just going up there and being on stage. I'm actually trying to connect not only with what they're doing, but the people.
So welcome, Henry, for joining us. And that's how
My pleasure.
Henry and I got connected years ago. You were part of Let It Be Foundation, many of our events, from our galas, our golf tournament, and not only did our entire staff love working with you, truly, but all of our guests and donors, they loved when Henry was there, loved the sidebar conversations, and just to see you engaging was just such a delight. So definitely I miss that, and so glad you're here today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It was a blessing for me to come across Let It Be, and relationship that we forged out of it and we still have, and just the difference that you made and continue to make. It was an honor to be part of Let It Be.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So how long have you guys known each other?
Wow. Well, let's see.
That's a good question. I would say close to 10 years, Ruth. I can tell you how it started. Yeah,
Yes.
And you probably remember this as well, but when my sons were younger, my two sons are 25 and 21, so I'm going to go back, 10 years ago, probably even plus. So it's always been very important to my wife Lisa and I to make sure that our sons were grounded, and that our sons were giving back and felt a connection to do things in the community. And my wife came across the Let It Be walk that you used to do. Mm-hmm. And we were going to wake them up on a Saturday morning or Sunday. I'm not sure if
Glad
it was
you
Saturday
could
or
use
Sunday.
us. Yeah.
Yes. We're going to wake them up early. We're going to inconvenience them. We're going to make them do something that they may not want to do, but they're going to learn from it. So it was, and then she said, "Hey, we're doing this." And I'm like, "Well, I'm going to go. We'll make it a family affair." So that was my first introduction with Let It Be. That's how it all started with the walk.
And get your steps in.
Get your steps in.
Don't forget about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Get the old ticker.
And
ticker working.
and make your wife happy.
Well, that's yes. I'm sure we'll get to those themes at some point, but yes.
Okay, and 2 dogs, Otis and Lucy.
Yes, we are dog lovers, but we treat them like family, as they should be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, Henry. So Ruthie's wearing her Tennessee Titans sweatshirt, and I am wearing my Seattle Kraken shirt. We actually planned this because we know you're a big sports buff. So I got to ask, are you a Kings fan?
Football season's coming up.
I know football season's coming up. I'm so excited. In fact, I was really disappointed I couldn't make it out there for a week. I'm doing an event the second weekend of the NFL season, or else I would have been there to watch the Rams in Tennessee, my two favorite teams. Now I'm a Titans fan because of my love for Nashville and Tennessee. But to answer your question, Tim, I do like the Kings, but my allegiance is to the Ducks. I'm just born and raised in Orange County. I was excited when we got a team, but it's funny. I'm also an Angels fan. People say, "Well, if you like the Angels, you have to dislike the Dodgers." I'm like, no, I root for the Dodgers. But if they were in the World Series, I'm rooting for the Angels. And the same thing if it's in the conference finals, Kings and Ducks, I have to go for the Ducks.
Okay, I love that. My favorite stat about the Ducks was their first inaugural year. They had the most penalties out of any team because they were the Mighty Ducks, and so they had to
prove themselves, stand up to their name.
Prove themselves. Yeah, makes sense.
So a couple other, goofball, off-the-wall questions I want to ask is, we do have a playlist on Spotify called the Let It Be playlist. And if you don't have one right now, you can even get back to us. But favorite song, like maybe even the one that you just sing and dance out loud to, because I've got one.
But also sometimes I think the favorite song is the season you're in or what you're listening to right now. So it's not always the favorite song of forever. At least
it's interesting that is a great question, by the way, because I think that's very difficult. There might be a song that you look back and think reminds you of high school, and your point, Ruth, about seasons, maybe it's where you are now or different points in your life. I love all music. I'm a country music fan, but right now I'm into Morgan Wallen. I love the song.
Yeah.
Come Back as a Redneck. It's not one of the ones that's getting a lot of airplay, but I just love the message in that song.
Okay.
Great.
Come Back as a Redneck.
So when we Google Henry DiCarlo, there is a lot that we can find on you. But
some good, some bad.
It's great stuff. You're a great guy, and it is an honor to have you on our show.
Well, thank you. I'm happy
Especially
to be here.
so early on. You took the risk and said, of course I'll go on with you early on into our podcast. So thank you. So
course.
what is a fun fact about Henry that we cannot Google and find ourselves, but something that you want to share with us?
God, and that was door-to-door sales. And I started in door-to-door sales, and I tell people it was the most influential job that I ever had. I started, believe it or not, when I was 8. My father was a manager with the Fuller Brush Company. And, it's funny, I look back at this, and I'm like, who in their right mind would send their 8-year-old kid out in the neighborhood to knock on doors, getting invited?
With no supervision, no supervision.
Exactly. A different time, right? Didn't even think twice. But yeah, I'd go knocking on doors, and I'd have a catalog, and I would sell these Fuller Brush products. And I actually did it all the way through college, on again, off again. It was a great way to, work around my schedule and make money. But I loved that job because it actually had so many life skills that were so important that I didn't realize I was getting. But I would say probably the biggest life skill is that was just communication. But I really enjoyed that. Back in college, I was in a band, so we played a lot of small venues in Fullerton and Anaheim and Orange. So I did
What
that.
What instrument did you play?
I didn't. I just sang, believe it or not. So, I think I just made noise.
There you go. So at any time, if you feel like breaking out in song, Henry, Tim and I just...
I got my guitar right here. We can just
have
a jam session.
Yeah, new
we may
band.
have to do that.
Hey, there's a new band starting up.
Well, I'll tell you what, Tim. Next time when I'm drinking wine instead of water, maybe I'll have the courage to,
We'll call ourselves the Fuller Brush Band.
Or when you're out here in Nashville, maybe a little whiskey, right?
Yeah, exactly. You won't have to twist my arm on that.
So I have a serious question, then Tim's going to get into our next conversation. Have you listened to our Let It Be podcast yet, Henry?
I have not. I apologize. It's funny. Funny because I need to. I know, but I can't.
Henry.
I'm not gonna.
Isn't there a candy bar named that?
There is. It's still out there somewhere. It's still out there.
It's okay. I'm going to forgive you on that, Henry.
Please do. Please,
Henry,
do.
don't you drive in the car to and from in traffic, and you actually have time to listen?
I have about 2 hours every day. My wife gets on me all the time.
You didn't have to throw in the 2 hours every day.
I know. She'll be like, I sent you this great podcast. Did you listen to it? I'm like, no. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm listening to sports radio. Tim, I'm a sports radio guy. I listen to, sports radio stuff.
We're going to forgive you, but...
I know. She put you on the spot there.
I did.
I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Ruth, Tim, I probably won't even listen to this one. And the reason why is
you don't want to hear what you have to say.
I don't want to hear. I don't want to look at myself. One of the big things about being in the business that especially when you're younger, you're supposed to go back and record everything. Look, what can I do different? And even to this day, and I don't look at anything. I'm very uncomfortable with it. I'm very negative on myself. And I know that's not what I should be doing because that is the best way to learn. I'm one of those out of sight, out of mind people. Yep. Yeah. But I'll listen to this one and I'll go back and I'll listen. I apologize.
All right.
You don't need to apologize. It's pretty funny.
Ever coming back as a guest, Henry, I'm going to give you some test questions to see, did you listen to a few episodes? So
I will do my homework better, I promise.
Okay. All right, Tim, are you ready?
Okay. One of the other connections that we often look for with our guests is an adoption story, which you don't have an adoption story. So the next thing that we like to find a connection on is the cancer world. And you do actually have a connection with cancer, and just kind of hoping that you could take a little time and talk us through that. Anything that might give others hope and encouragement as maybe they're going through that right now or worried about it in the future.
Yes, my connection is prostate cancer. So give you a little backstory. My father had prostate cancer at a very young age. He actually passed from something else, but I was very aware of our family history of prostate cancer. I have been getting my prostate, checked since probably in my late 30s and 40s, just, to be on top of everything.
When does a male, Henry, actually start testing for that?
It used to be 50, maybe just a blood test checking the PSA. I think they're urging males to do that earlier now, especially if you know your family history, which is really important. So some families like myself, a little more susceptible to it. Men of color tend to have a higher percentage of prostate cancer. So I think if you're in a certain group, that maybe you should start a little early. But I tell people all the time, what's the harm of doing it at 30? So I always try to be an advocate for, I think when we think of a prostate check, we think as a male, we think of certain things that we don't want to do. I said, no, it's not like that. You just go, when you get your blood test, have them check your PSA, and that's going to be your first marker. That's going to kind of give you a baseline. But yeah, I had always had it checked. Everything was looking fine. I'd have little spikes with my PSA. It'd go up and down, but always never critical. And just a routine, 6-month checkup, I had a huge spike. And my doctor's like, okay, this is very unusual. We have something going on. And so I had a biopsy. I did have some cancerous cells, but it was nothing to be too alarmed with, and everything was fine for about 6 years. And then back in, I think it was 2019 or 17.
So at that point, and I do apologize for cutting you off, you did not have any symptoms just other than the doctor seeing the spike.
Correct. Never had any symptoms. In fact, even when I had my elevated PSA that alerted me, like, hey, we need to be more aggressive as to finding out what's going on. I've never suffered from any symptoms. We just knew it was there. But I did one biopsy, and it wasn't anything to be overly concerned about. It's like, hey, we can just continue to monitor this. And then about 2 years later, as I said, it just came back, and that's when we went more involved with things. So that's when I went and had my prostate removed. So. That was back in 2019, I believe. And I still get checked. I still go in for yearly scans. The thing about cancer is once you deal with it, and Ruth, as you know, unfortunately all too well, it never goes away. Even if the doctor says, hey, you're looking great, you're like, there's always something there in the back of your mind. I changed a lot of my eating habits, drinking habits, things that I could do to help my body fight this, and also just be alert and aware. But I made it a mission. I have no problem talking to men about this, and I often will say it, on TV many times. If we give a shout out, somebody turns 40 or 50, I'm like, hey, enjoy your birthday and give your family a gift. Go get your prostate checked, because early detection is the key. And men don't like, Tim, as you know, men, men don't like to talk about, especially when we're talking about parts of our body that we generally don't feel comfortable talking about.
Sure.
But I have no problem talking about it.
Such a blessing, Henry, that you are not afraid to share, and that you get to be there for the next person. And
thank you. I feel like that's just something that we need to do as men, Tim. As we mentioned, it's not something we want to talk about. Men need to feel like, hey, this is just a part of our life. We have no problem talking about a back pain or neck pain, or like, I got out of bed and I can't believe my knee hurts. But we don't talk about prostate, and we need to.
Yeah, I had a conversation about getting your colon cancer screening to a guy who was in his 50s, and he said he hadn't done it. And I was like, hey, man, I did mine. I'm glad I did, because they did find stuff. And then he came back, I think 3 months later, and he's like, dude, thank you. I had it. They found stuff. They cleaned it out. Like, thank you so much. And but it's such a weird conversation to have with a guy. But then when you have that connection and you help someone, it's like, it's really awesome that you're able to provide that for people, because it's really important.
Well, as men, we put off too much.
Yeah.
Every day of the year, it is every opportunity that you have an opportunity to spread awareness, you're doing that. So did your spiritual life, Henry, change pre-diagnosis and post?
That is a great question, an interesting question. I think at the time I told myself that it did, but I'm not sure that it truly did. And that's part of my journey now, is just these things that I thought I was doing or thinking. I think I fell back on it because I'm like, oh my goodness, Lord, I need you now, but I wasn't putting in the work for that relationship with him. So I think it was a false sense of security in the sense like, okay, I'm reaching out to you, but I always deep down felt a little hypocritical because it's like, okay, I'm asking you for something and you ask something from me every day. And that is just to walk the walk and be a steward of what your message is and what I should be as a Christian, as a Catholic. And that always was kind of in the back of my head. I would pray and I actually feel guilty about praying, because I felt like I just said, I'm asking, but I'm not doing. It took me years, and I'm still struggling with that now, and I'm sure we'll get into that part of it through the conversation. I think I felt I was, but there was a part of me
because you were
that's saying
praying for your outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And you wanted to write this story, and you were asking the prayers, asking, not, as Tim and I talked about on a previous episode, having a relationship with the Lord versus it was about religion, it sounds like at that point.
Correct. And I think it was very transactional, if that makes sense. And I knew, I'm just like, okay, this is not right. But the way that I'm approaching this, it was always kind of in the back of my head. But I've always been spiritual. I've always believed in a higher being. That has never left me. That's always been there. But it took me a long time to actually realize, you're asking and you're doing nothing. And I'm trying to do more. And I still struggle with that.
I think we all do, Henry.
Yeah.
I think we all do.
Well, and I think, Ruthie, you've told me something along the way, too, where when you are praying for something or an outcome, God doesn't just give that to you. He gives you the opportunity to make that better yourself. And this, is just the agnostic talking here. But
ask away. You got two of us.
Yeah.
So when you're saying, like, help me get through this, he's not just going to be like, okay, well, you got it. You're done.
No,
You're healed,
and
Henry. So opening your eyes to, like, okay, I've asked, and now, like, you're looking intently more like, where's the opportunity right here for me to make the most of this, or me to make the change, or me to take charge of how I can get better or make others better.
Oh, Tim, that was beautifully said, because you didn't phrase it as an ask. You phrased it as, what do you want from me to see this? So that was pretty awesome.
You also brought up that kind of the next part of the conversation is when we met last time, you opened up heavily, and Ruthie's got a couple of questions for you that I'm excited for her to ask. But what I really took from our last conversation was the desire to be more authentic. And there are so many people, I have this conversation on the regular with people that I oversee at work as leaders, showing up as who you are as opposed to who you think others want you to be. And that's a very hard challenge for people to move past, because there's a lot of...
Or even who you want. You said who others think you want to be. It's also who us ourselves want to be.
Yeah. And so, I think that's a brave conversation to have with yourself, because it requires work and change. And so do you want to talk about it a little bit? Open up a little bit on kind of what you're going through?
Absolutely. It's very interesting. Even when I hear you say those words, I can think of myself just kind of struggling with this. Being on TV, as I am every day, I get this opportunity to just go and almost be whoever I want to be. I can let the public have a perception, and they may like it, they may dislike it, but I can almost play to it. And when you're on TV, you have to be on. And to a certain degree, when you're out in the public and in your private life, and somebody comes up and they know you from what you do on TV, all of a sudden there's this, switch, like, okay, I need to be a little on. I've always felt that I've been true to who I am, my character and my personality, but you always do have to be on. So it's very tough, because after a while, especially when you do this and you do it for so long and you feel like you're making a difference or you're resonating with people and they enjoy what you're doing, you almost become so involved in that personality that you start drifting away from your true personality. And I'm not saying my personality is one extreme to the other. I mean, it's very similar. But oftentimes you start losing a little bit of yourself. And I think that took me a long time to realize that I was drifting away to who I really was, and I was playing this part. And the part may have not been too far away from who I actually was, but I was still playing a part. And to a certain degree, I still do that. But that is very difficult, because after a while, you start feeling a little shallow. You start feeling like, okay, who am I? Sometimes the lines get blurred and you're like, oh, wait a minute, that really wasn't me. That was just this, perception of me that I'm trying to portray. So it's a great question. It's difficult to explain. Yeah, but it's difficult to explain, but it can overtake you. And that's the balance I'm trying to find in my life now. And here's the interesting thing, Ruth and Tim, that I feel about this. If I become more of who I am and how I feel and my perception, is that going to let down people because they're like, wait a minute, that's not what I expected from you, or that's not what I expect from you. And now I become much more comfortable in myself and just being, hey, this is who I am. This is what I believe in. This is what I stand for. I know in my heart I'm a good person, and obviously I don't want anyone to dislike me, and I'm not going to go out of my way for confrontation or to have somebody dislike me. But I'm going to be more true. I'm going to be more true to me. I owe it to me, and I definitely owe it to my family, because my family knows me. They know the real me.
Absolutely.
And and there was a disconnect sometimes where it was like, I felt like I was in some ways living a fraudulent lifestyle outside of my work environment.
Yeah, your family is the biggest barometer for your life too, because when they notice, it's like, wow, something's wrong here.
and when they notice and they tell you, it hurts. Because you don't want to let people down. Certainly not your family. That's the most important thing that you have in your personal life, that and your relationship with God, that is the arc that I'm still navigating through at this point in my life.
And I think, Henry, I can relate to the struggles, to a lot of things that you said, public versus private life. But have you ever felt, you're in the media world, have you ever felt pressure to downplay your beliefs in a professional setting? And if you have, what kind of conversation did you have with Henry on that drive home after you recognized, wow, I downplayed something and I didn't have either the courage to say something different or fear set in?
Interesting, because I've never felt that I took a side that I didn't believe in. But I think what I have done is maybe not spoken up at times where I could have. And that is what would eat at me. I never changed my belief as far as like, yeah, I agree with that, and we should do all that. I would just be silent. But silent is not good either. So I've never been told anything as far as this is where we have to be politically, this is where we have to be with religious views, nothing like that. At any point in my career was there ever an agenda from above. But I've been in this business for over 25 years. And that, early on, the first, 15, 20 years, that wasn't even a conversation to be had because it was just known. I mean, as a journalist, as somebody on the news, especially anchors, you were to have no opinion. People were not supposed to know where your political views were or your religious views were. Your duty to the public was to...
Things have changed.
They have. Yeah. They've changed a lot. Here's one side, here's the other side, and it's up to you, the viewer, to decide your feelings on that. That has changed. There has been a move to where I think stories are written differently and stories are written slanted, and to protect the integrity of my profession and the people that I work with. I don't think it's a conscious decision by them. It's not something they're told to do. I just think more views are allowed to make their way in, and those people would sit there and say, I'm not trying to put my views into this. It's just their writing style. It just happens that way. And I don't think they're doing it maliciously. But I think now it's become more apparent that people that do have a platform on news, they can they can say things or word things or let things pass on TV. I think people know where they stand. I'm trying to kind of tiptoe around this, but I'm hoping you can get the point that it's not.
Actually, and what I keep thinking about is, can you recall a time where you said to yourself on that drive home, because we know you weren't listening to Let It Be podcast, you just were listening, you were just thinking,
Listening to sports radio.
Thinking about, was there a time where I wish I would have said this? I could have said this. And you have that conversation, self-convicting, to say, I didn't do it and I could have. And what did that look like?
I don't have a specific example because I think there's a number of them. I think sometimes there is religion and faith, again, just like politics, it was never part of the conversation. It should never have encroached what the message is, and that is just the viewer deciding whether something is right or wrong or how their feeling is. I do think that there, for whatever reason, having any type of faith or religion is frowned upon, which is sad because I think there's a lot of people that fully have, they have beliefs, and I'm one of those people. To me, I'm happy if you're religious. I don't care what your denomination is. We may have differing views of what religion is, but I'm one of those people. It's there's a higher being, and anybody who lives their life accordingly and tries to do the best that they can, and tries to uplift and help others and lives their life in a Christian way, or my interpretation of a Christian way. Even if you're not Christian, there's a place for you after this world, because that's just my vision of a God. My God is not going to, if we're going to a third world country, or we're going to, to places where maybe Christianity has never been introduced, or there's not an opportunity for them to learn that. Why would those people why would they not be open to this afterlife when they haven't been introduced to it? So, I have had those, thoughts where it's like, wow, you know what? Maybe I could have just said something or done something just to connect with that spiritual side of people out there. It's not a particular instance or something that happened, but I think it's okay sometimes on television to give this maybe an atheist look, or take God and religion and spiritual tones out of stories, which is fine if you're not going to let the other side.
Easier to be an agnostic.
Correct. And I think it's easier to get those conversations on TV, and it's acceptable. And I will never do that with in the political scope. That's not my job. But I have made it more of a conscious effort that I will say God or whatever. I will talk about people that we talk about. I mean, Scotty Scheffler is a perfect example. He's a great golfer. He's on top of the golf world, and he's been on the news and sports segments, and he'll talk about things, but he puts God and family first. It's little things like that I can say in kind of a harmless way, but I think those are things that we should not feel bad. And the reason why, how many times I'll listen to the sports, maybe a golfer live, it'll be PGA Network, and they'll do it, and they'll say, hey, Scotty Scheffler, you just won. He's like, well, first I want to give glory to God. And we'll see college athletes do this all the time, but those things never make TV. They always get cut out. And I think that's a disservice, because not only to the person that's being interviewed, but also to the public, because why is that taboo? Why is it taboo that somebody wants to honor God or their religion or whatever it is first and foremost?
Sometimes, though, like when we're watching, like to your point, sports broadcasts, it's not always cut out. And so it's interesting to hear your take, because you clearly see more of that than I would. And I'm glad you brought up Scotty Scheffler, right?
Scotty Scheffler, yeah.
Yeah. So I actually haven't ever seen any of his broadcasts, but I can relate to like watching the Super Bowl, and at the end, like everyone is giving glory to God, and like for me as a non-believer, it's just like, okay, now I know their faith. It doesn't matter to me, So it's weird that someone would take the time to cut that out.
Were you raised, Henry, going to church? What did that look like for you when you were a kid?
Raised Catholic, still identify as a Catholic, even though I do tend to go more towards a Christian church, Friends Christian in Yorba Linda. But in my heart, I'm still Catholic. But I was raised, to answer your question, I was raised with faith. Now, we weren't hardcore. We didn't go every week. We always hit the Easter and the Christmas and occasionally sprinkle in a certain thing. But, I did church classes, CCD, after school, and they would do pull the trailer up and the Christian release time. But it was great. It gave me that introduction. It gave me, something to believe in at an early age. But then as you become older, that's when you really go on this journey to really kind of figure out, okay, what is this for me and what is this all about?
Do you see the media world changing in any way? Meaning that God, the conversation, even just the behind the scenes conversations that you're having with your coworkers, do you see anything different?
No, I don't, unfortunately. I do think I find there's more people that are willing to express their faith. There's more people that are willing to talk about things and to deal with people maybe not agreeing or appreciating that. The problem that I see in television, and not so much television, I just think in the world that we live in with social media, and I always say this, I truly believe 90% of us, you could be on the left, you could be on the right, you could be Catholic, you could be Jewish, you could be whatever it is. But generally speaking, the majority of us all we want the same thing. We want to be happy. We want people to be peaceful. We want to respect other people's lives as long as they respect ours. I think the extremes are so loud that in TV, when you get that fringe who just cannot handle somebody talking about faith or somebody talking about this issue, they are so loud on social media or with rally, whatever the case may be, that TV stations look at it as like, oh my goodness. And so I think they're afraid because that small fringe of people that get upset, they create such a big ruckus and appear loud that they're afraid to engage in that. Yeah. And we can make the argument, maybe there's no place for any type of religious on TV, on public TV, and I would accept that. If somebody were to sit there and say, "Hey, Henry, you know what? I get what you're saying. You want to talk and give praise to God or whatever it is," I would say I'm fine with that. But I don't think we should be catering to those or giving attention to those that take the alternate view. I think maybe we just keep it out of there entirely, but that's not happening. And I think that's the point that you're making. I think it's much more accepted and okay to question things or to look down on people of faith and get away with it. But when someone has faith and stands up to it, it's like, there's no room for you on this platform.
Well, you had mentioned that there are people that you've recognized that will speak up and will maybe disagree. Are those people ostracized?
No, I think the good thing is because we're all, we're all friends. We all get along. But I do think it's kind of one of those things where people probably within their own group say like, oh, you know what, great guy, but this guy, and not so much for me because I don't tend to, get into it. There's trust me, there's other people in there. They fight much more than I do about things, and good for them. And I think there's others that look like, oh, okay, he's a good person, but boy, he goes off the rails.
He's a religious nutcase.
I mean,
yeah, exactly.
What's the worst thing that happens beyond that? Someone else's opinion is, and I'll just maybe even use you. You start to become the authentic person that you want to be, and you start that track. And whenever you change your personality around others, you're doing a good job when they respond like, what?
What's going on?
What?
Like,
and
what
they
did
respond
you just
with
say?
like, yeah.
Yeah.
I personally have noticed that in changes I've made this year where like someone I work next to would like look at me like, what do you mean? And it's like totally catching them off guard. And so what is the cost? Really? I mean, if you start to become the person that you want to be, what does it matter if Bill over there, behind the camera is like, oh God, Henry's talking about God again. It's like, so what, Bill? You don't have to please everyone all the time. I don't want to please everyone all the time. I don't like everyone. And,
yeah.
But I want my wife to be happy. I want my sister to be happy. I want people to be happy, but I want to be happy. And so, just thinking really, Henry, what is the cost?
Well, I don't feel like
that's a big question.
It is a big question. I don't know. If there is a cost, I'm not aware of it. And by that, I mean, if there's a cost, if people are saying stuff behind my back or people don't like me because of it, I'm not aware of that. So it does not affect me. And I will, to be completely truthful, I don't want anyone to think that when I'm up there and I'm doing my weathercast or a story comes out and I'm, and I'm going on a religious tangent or I'm talking about, no, that's not, that's not what I'm doing.
Right.
I'll be silly. It is something as small as this. Sometimes we'll be on the air live television. I'll be doing my weather. And maybe the anchor is off camera. They'll sneeze. I mean, just like anything else. And it's like, okay, that was a loud sneeze. That went through a microphone. Folks at home heard it. I now will make a conscious effort to say, God bless you, where I used to say, bless you.
Awesome.
So it's little things like that. Most of it is probably behind the scenes when I'm having conversations with people and we'll talk about something and I'll just say, hey, my faith teaches me this, or this is how I feel. But I don't really use television as a platform for me. But what I do is I don't take the little things that I can do, as simple as God bless you, and I don't cover those things up. I'm like, you know what? That's what I'm going to, that's what I would say in public. That's what I would say to my family, or that's what I'm starting to do now. And I'm going to do that. But as far as any type of pushback, I've never had any pushback. I don't think I go crazy. In fact, I think this, for anyone who's a regular viewer of KTLA 5, they're probably like, I never even really noticed it. But that's good. I don't want you to notice it. I'm just being true to myself.
And you're supposed to be that way. I have a question for you. So I've been listening, but I'm just curious, and maybe this question is for both you and Tim.
Ooh.
Has there...
Oh, boy.
So this is a two-part question. Has there been missed opportunities where you could have used prayer to make a difference in a coworker's life and you chose not to? And number two, have there been circumstances where you maybe felt on your heart that a prayer would be good right now?
No, I never had that in any opportunity. I've never had that in any circumstance. Has that ever happened? It's interesting you say this, though. No, I haven't really thought about it, but I this happened probably about a year and a half ago, Tim. You probably, being a sports fan, if you remember, there was a Monday night game, and one of the players for one of the players was for the Buffalo Bills was injured, and he was on. Obviously they took him away on a card. It looked extremely serious, and they stopped the game right there. They didn't even continue the game. Yeah,
I was watching the game.
Oh my goodness, I like him, and his name is.
I could see. I know. I'm sitting here. I wanted to impress you both and pop out the name.
But he was it was on ESPN, and they were talking about it, and he stopped their. They were doing their Sports Center or whatever
and what
it
did
was.
He
Maybe
do
it was
on
NFL
air?
Live. He stopped right there on TV on ESPN, and he said, "Let's say a prayer." It went viral.
Know. So bold.
Is it DeMar Hamlin?
Yes, DeMar
Hamlin is the one who was injured, but it was the ESPN anchor, and he said, listen, we're going to say a prayer. And I think it was great. I don't know how others, their beliefs on the set, but everybody said a prayer, and it went viral. And to me, I just loved that moment. It was bold, something you didn't see anymore, but to see the support, and it goes kind of back to my original conversation where that is taboo on television. But there were millions of people across the country, and that was shared millions of times, that appreciated that. And I think it had a positive effect, not a negative. I'm sure there were some people that would say, hey, there's no room for that or whatever. But overall, and I'll be honest, that was kind of a defining moment for me. It was like, you know what? I think we can start having this conversation or introducing this stuff because people are out there and they want this, they believe in this, but they are afraid of what others are going to say or do. But I think the majority, there's people, whatever their faith is, that want to have this connection.
Is there anything, Henry, that comes to mind with you looking back at the broadcasters' Let's Pray right now? Is there anything that comes to mind right now that you say, I can make a difference if I did what?
Ooh, that's a good question. Because if I did what I think what I need to do, because I do ask myself this, I think what I have to do is in the moment when I have an opportunity to not go off on a tangent and not go off on preaching or anything like that. In the moment, I think I can do whatever it is, a small word or this or that, to let others out there know that, hey, this is okay. And it's tough for me to answer because I don't know what the specific example would be, but I could tell you this: if we had somebody up there on our station, whether it was a soundbite or somebody talking who was denigrating religion and trying to say, I do believe, say, hey, I'm a person of faith, whatever it was that I felt that I could be a voice for others, that would, otherwise not have that voice on television. So. But I don't consciously think. I don't wake up every day and consciously think and say, okay, how can I spread this and how can I put this out there? I don't. I think it's just more in the moment when stuff comes on. What are these little things that I can do just to support the others?
But having that desire right now, Henry, you know how prayers work, and a prayer doesn't have to be closing your eyes and asking for something, but it's having a desire on your heart. So you opened up that godly gift back right there, and God's going to put in your path lots of opportunities, and I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, hear about your transformation. I mean, if we brought you back on in a year, I wonder if we'd have a different Henry.
And just to be able to
hopefully
pinpoint
you will.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely.
What about you, Tim?
Yeah, he kind of got out of that.
You're not getting off the hook.
Oh, nice, Henry. I love that.
My thought as I was going through things in my mind of why, how can I put this? Okay. I often see prayer being used in times of trial and grief and calamity, and less in times of positivity. There is some, like when you're sitting around having a meal, God, thank you for this meal, for bringing us all together. We want to say we hope that grandma is doing well, even though she can't be here. That's like the happy part. But most prayer, because I was running down all these things in my life that have happened at work, and it all turned to tragedy. There was a guy I worked with who was just an amazing person, amazing cook, worked with him for years, nice guy. He drank himself to death recently, and it was just like, I remember thinking like, oh my God, Jamie, that's awful. And then I thought to myself another thing and another coworker, and it's like, why am I thinking of only tragedy? Why can't it be like this guy who came and thanked me for telling him to get his colon cancer screening? That could be a prayer moment. Thank you.
But it is
God for.
But the closer you get to God and the more you pray, 100%, Tim, it is like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's where my brain went as an agnostic. Now, would I stop and have a prayer? No, I would not, because that's just not part of my faith. Right. But it was a really good question, Ruthie, because it allowed me to go through some things that have happened that pulled at me.
And Tim, I think you bring up a really good point, because I think we all suffer from that. We tend to kind of put our religion or God kind of on a shelf. It's there. It's comforting. We know it's there, but we don't really go to it until this time of need. And that almost goes back to what I was saying right off the top about what the struggle that I have is am I really being a true Christian? And trust me, I've got a long way to go. There's a lot of things, so I'm not saying I'm there yet. I'm just saying I'm on that journey to get there. But you bring up a great point, because it's like, okay, it's on the shelf. I'm fine. Life is great. Things are going good. I have a problem. I could have a problem. God, help me. God, look after this. God, do that. And then all of a sudden things have a tendency to kind of get back, work themselves out, and then God goes back on a shelf, and then you're living in, days. We don't ever take that opportunity to just sit there and say, you know what? Thank you for all of these blessings. And I know there's many that do that, but I'm in the same boat with you, Tim. And sometimes it goes back to that almost transactional thing. I don't look at it now as a transactional thing, but we kind of out of sight, out of mind until we need them. And then we're asking.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to turn it back then on. I'm going to turn it back to you here. When is the last time you clearly knew it was about thanking God for something simple? When is the last time you've done that, Henry?
Yesterday morning.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
That's great.
I did it yesterday morning, and I do before I go to bed every night, I have to get up relatively early for my job. And I will
relatively
always
early?
Yeah, I do.
I think that's more than
early.
Relatively early. What time do you get up, Henry?
2:30. 2:30 in the morning.
Oh,
Yeah.
Tim's
so I
just
get up
going
early.
to bed.
No, God, no. Are you kidding? I'd be a wreck.
Yeah. So I get up early, but I'm very fortunate. Right now, we've got both sons with us. My son's working, but he's living with us at home. But then I have my other son, who's getting ready for his senior year in college. But my kids are home. So, every night when I go to bed, I'll go to each one of their rooms and I'll say, hey, good night, love you, have a good evening, and the last thing, they'll say, good night, Dad, love you too. And the last thing both of my sons say, and even my wife will say, drive safe tomorrow. Because that to me is the most dangerous thing that I do, is getting on the road at 2:30, 3 in the morning, because I figured we're tired. There may not be a lot of traffic, but you have tired drivers, you have, impaired
Drunk
drivers. And truck drivers. So every morning when I get in my car, I consciously think, you know what, these were the last wishes of my kids. My kids said, drive safe tomorrow. So every morning when I pull into the driveway at work, as I'm putting in the park, I always look up and I say, thank you, God, for getting me to work safely. Because that to me is the most important thing for my kids. So to your point, now, do I consciously daily thank him for things? Not daily, but I do quite a bit, more so than ever. I think I'm more in tune with just, looking at the blessings that I have. And as you get older, I'm much more conscious about just trying to be thankful for the things that I have, where before I was just asking, God, I want this, I want to do this. And, oh, thank you for this opportunity. Now they're different thank yous.
And I know this could be completely random, and I know it's just talk about a sidebar here. I went through a little period for a while that I really tried, to look at the simple things that I'm grateful for that are not big things. And I'll share. I'm driving down the street, and instead of thinking about myself or what I'm listening to on the radio that's feeding me, I'm looking around at all the things that are not about me. And the most random thing I have that comes to my mind is looking at the trash can that's the side of the road and just thanking God that somebody took a job to say, I'll change those trash cans.
Yeah.
I know that's random, but you could really go down a rabbit hole.
That's a rabbit hole indeed.
Yeah.
But think about all the things. We think that we're supposed to just be thankful to the things that benefit us. But if you have a hard time praising God or thanking God or just thinking simply for yourself, think about everybody else. Even the person who made the tires that are on your car to get you here safely. Like, I know that's a rabbit hole, but I'm just saying that it's truly endless. And
yeah.
I hope somehow that little tangent there gets you both thinking.
Wow.
So
I'm worried about you a little bit and where your mind's going. I might have to check in on you more, Ruthie.
Right. Now when I see a muffler in a car, I'm going to have to thank the person that made the muffler. I mean, we can just keep going on. But I hear what you're saying, Ruthie.
You get what I'm... So I have Okay, now I'm going to go completely random on a different side. We had a visitor, and he is in the media industry. He's a cinematographer. And he was telling me this story we got into, because you know me, might have a glass of wine, and oh boy, that's a spiritual juice for me. So he said he was on the set, and somebody yelled out, God damn it. And he goes, whoa, 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 do we have to use God's name in vain like that? And he looked at him and he goes, don't you tell me you're one of those Bible thumpers too. And that has just stuck with me. And knowing we were going to talk to you, and I know your worlds are different, but to think that somebody wants to just express themselves by saying, you don't need to do it like that. And then to be called a Bible thumper just because he spoke his heart. So I can just imagine, Henry, some of the times, especially listening to some of the things that you are thinking about on the long drive home. But you know this tugs, and Tim, I'll explain it, that when you know something is happening that's godly, we get these tugs on our heart. And it just keeps happening over and over until we listen. So I just think that you're so brave to have this conversation with us. It was not something I certainly thought you were going to want to talk about. I thought we were going to get into.
Yeah.
You truly made my day. Could not wait to have a discussion with Tim to say, oh my goodness, look at what Henry wants to talk about.
I feel like it's kind of a calling for me. So I was happy to kind of get away from the normal stuff that I typically talk about. How did you get into this business, and what's it like working in TV? And to your point with your example, isn't that what we're all afraid of? That now we're going to be labeled. Here we are, a person of faith, and our job is to make this world better and to make people feel happy and all this stuff. And now all of a sudden you're being labeled something that's negative. No, it's not. I'm not being that. I don't come in here with a Bible every day and start reading to you. And I don't tell you to come join my church. And then I know that's what, a lot of churches want you to do. And I get that. And I probably failed them from that regard because I don't want to change anybody. I want people to change through what they see, not by what they hear.
Yes.
But that was one thing that was like, ooh, I feel good. And somebody accepted that. But it is scary because you don't know how somebody's going to take that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well,
that's the definition of authenticity. You don't even have to think about it. It's just unconsciously you're doing it. And it feels good too, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. It's like a hall pass to be yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think as you get older, you get more comfortable with that.
Hall pass to be myself.
Yeah.
I'm going to think about that. I'm going to use that actually the next time I do something really crazy and say, well, no, Tim told me just to be authentic.
Gosh, please don't bring me into this.
Well,
I'm going to bring you into it. I'm going to say the same thing. I'm going to say, Tim told me I could say this.
Well, and I have a question to wrap up, but a couple of things I didn't want to stop you when you were talking. I want to just personally chime in. You've shared, and I can totally relate to when you said the public versus private life. After 20 years of doing Let It Be, I was my authentic self. But I began to feel like my public person, Ruth, was not the same as my private life. And not that there was anything I was hiding, but I couldn't be walking alongside a family who was going to lose their child and then the next day be at the Jason Aldean concert and hooting and hollering on Broadway. So I tried to then keep my life separately, which then, as you also said, drifting away from your true self, losing a little bit of who you are. And I could totally relate to that, and I bet you there's a lot of people out there, Henry, that understand clearly what you mean. Henry, how do you hope your story will inspire others, both believers and those like Tim, who is agnostic?
I want people to know that I am a failed human in a lot of ways, in a sense that, like all of us, we have things, and we all have faults. Maybe that's better. I don't think I'm a failed human. That wasn't probably the right way to say it. I'm just saying I'm not perfect. We all have faults, and I think in some ways the person that I was in my 30s and 40s, I'm completely different than that person. And sometimes you're kind of trapped by your past, especially with people that are around you. I think it's hard for them sometimes to accept an arc. And when you try to be a certain way, and then they're like, okay, are you just saying this? Are you just doing this? Or do you truly believe in this? But I think for me, how I would want people to remember is like, this was not a perfect person. He never tried to be a perfect person. He never wanted you to think he was a perfect person, but he was a person that had an arc, who had a vision of what he wanted to be. And even though I know I'll never get to where I would like to be, I just know that's a constant journey that we're all on. I hope people will see that, hey, you know what? I see this person on TV. He's telling me that he's not everything he is. He's just like me. He's just the average person that's still struggling through things and trying to do things right as a man, trying to do things right as a family. And some of those things he's failed at, but he continued this journey to try to be better. And you know what? I can do that too, because I think we live in a society where we look at stuff, certainly people, and we think that they have it all, and we think it's great and all that. But all these people, they're just like us, this conversation we had, Ruth, where it's like, it's really hard to have a private and personal life that really, truly,
yes.
Mesh and are the same. So we make gods out of people, and we're like, oh, I want to be like this. And I think it's really good for people to sit there and say, hey, listen, I'm not perfect. I'm just like you. I'm trying to do this and try to get that way. So, that's kind of what I wish, that I want. I want people to identify me as just like them, and just trying to get to a better place personally, spiritually, mentally, all of those things. And it's never too late. I wish I would have been in touch with this in my 20s and 30s. I think I would be, not just from a spiritual standpoint, but I think in every standpoint of my life, I think I would have had more. And those could be,
more rewards, more joys along the way. And that's the difference.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Wow.
I appreciate that.
Well, definitely, I think public versus private life, and to just allow ourselves, give ourselves the grace to be our authentic selves. But keep in mind, too, and I think we've all learned it, especially all of our different ages. I think we're looking at 3 different age decades right here, is what we knew yesterday isn't always what we know today. So give ourselves the grace to not beat ourselves up for what we didn't do yesterday, but once we recognize it, then move forward with hope and encouragement.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to be true to yourself, and if you're a person of faith, don't let somebody steal that from you. Doesn't mean you have to go out there and try to force people to believe what you believe in, but it doesn't mean that you need to take a back seat to what they're saying. And I think that's just for me, that's the biggest thing, is I'm not trying to change people. I'm just trying to change myself. And if changing myself helps people see something differently and changes them, then that's a win-win. But this is selfishly, I guess, this is all about me and my journey. Yeah.
Perfectly put.
Well said. I hope you do go back and listen to this episode when we put it out multiple times that you can hear your own advice.
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah, just as a reminder of
I will. If I don't, Ruthie's going to say, Henry, we're listening to it together.
I'm going to test you. Randomly, I'm going to send you a test question. And I'm going to really know if you listen to it or not. So,
I will. I promise you.
Yeah.
We just can't thank you enough, Henry. I don't know if there was anything you didn't say or felt you wanted to say before we bring closure. Please feel free to think about that for a moment. I'll use this opportunity to say thank you from deep within my heart for saying yes, for your time, for your boldness. And together, I think that we grew his kingdom a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I will leave with this. We've talked about, prostate cancer. We've talked about a number of different things. It could be somebody in a work environment. It could be your boss. It could be anyone. I mean, there's all these different settings where you think you have to be one thing and you're giving up a part of your life to do that. It doesn't even have to be out in the personal world. It could be in your work world. It is very important, I think, for people to be authentic. The theme that we've been talking about, true to themselves, is probably even a better way to say it. And so my point to saying all of this, just make time for yourself by going out and helping others. You're going to get a lot back in routine. And I'll leave you with this other thing. And this is probably
I have one more thing for you too. I have one more thing for you too.
We've got all the time in the world. So Tim, it's up to you if you just still stay with us.
Tim.
No, I'm teasing, but my point, I had a point to this, and I lost my train of thought, unfortunately.
That happens, Henry. That happens.
I know. It's an age thing, but
how about I ask you a question, and then maybe it'll trigger a thought to you. So what charity would you like to highlight right now that we could bring? So one of the things that Tim and I feel strongly about, passionate about, is bringing awareness to different charities, because there's so many incredible ones across our great United States. What's a charity you would like us to highlight? And we're going to put that on our website.
Okay. Well, I do a number of things for a number of different charities, but I think I'll take this opportunity to talk about my wife's nonprofit, if I can do
Well,
so.
you do
because
that.
I think
Yes.
this is my opportunity.
Yeah.
My wife created just organically. It was never even supposed to turn into anything. She wrote a book about a young child and a rescue dog that came home, and really the book was just to teach young children, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, about how to treat an animal, but it has turned into this great character. Won a major award a couple of years ago. Was named the best character humane education program for young children and animals in the country.
Wow.
And since then, it's gone nationwide. So her nonprofit is called Tails That Teach, like a dog's tail, Tails That Teach, and basically she provides books and character education programs to elementary schools, PTAs, animal organizations, and it's all about teaching kids how to treat their pets and people. But here's the thing. It really is a Christian-based book, that it's all about getting kids to treat people with kindness, compassion, empathy. It doesn't come across as anything religious. It's just the basic skills of life. It's become an extremely popular program.
God, I love this.
I can go.
This is great.
What is the title of her book?
The title of her book is called Love Me Gently, and it's a kid's guide to man's best friend. And it's interesting because if you do look at the book, or if somebody has the book, the main character, the little kid, his name is Henry. No, she did not write it for me.
Okay. I don't even know if I wanted to ask a question there.
Oh, that's great.
No, well, here's the thing. This actually, because we've always had dogs coming in and out of our house, whether we fostered dogs or we've had dogs. And when our son Hank was about 5, 6 years old, we had a dog, and trying to tell a kid, hey, don't grab the dog's tail, or don't bother the dog while he's eating, because he's going to get territorial. Don't pull the leash. All of these things. So she literally wrote a book that was just for him. Wow. And that's why she used him. And it was her way of kind of instilling these without us saying, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And so he brought it into his elementary school to read this book that my wife had written for him. And the teacher was like, oh my goodness, I really enjoyed this book. So anyway, she ended up getting 30 books printed and gave it to the school, and then another class. So this started organically. It was never even a plan.
I love it.
And Ruth and Tim, here's the weird thing. It was God's plan. I mean, and as silly as that sounds, and people say that, but I look and it's like, this was not ever supposed to be what it is today. But now nearly 1 million books have been granted to educators. It's used in all 50 states. Nashville, by the way, Tennessee, Ruthie, is a huge. Their school districts are huge with this program. It's in Canada, Puerto Rico, Mexico. It's available in Spanish. So it's all about, if we can get young kids at an early age to respect their relationship with the animals, it's usually their first experience with loss as well. For many kids, you lose a dog, it's like losing a loved one. So it helps them compartmentalize a lot of things. But the whole goal is, if we can get kids to treat animals, they're far less likely to grow up and harm humans. We know there's a direct correlation with people that create heinous crimes. It usually starts with animal abuse. So it checks a lot of boxes. Tails That Teach. I'm very proud of my wife for doing that. And anyway, that's what I'll take the opportunity to talk about.
I just looked it up too.
Yeah. So
Cooper.
Did
you really have a dog named Cooper?
Yes, we did. That was the dog that we had brought home. And so this truly was a story just for him, to get him to teach Cooper right. And then it turned into illustration and being a printed book, and it sold on Amazon and also on the website. And then there's a follow-up book called Gray Whiskers.
Gray Whiskers.
Yeah, and Gray Whiskers is about the same dog that grows up, becomes a senior dog, and it's teaching kids, just like your grandparents or people in your life. As you get older, maybe you can't do the same things, but it's still a life that you respect, and you stick with that life from start to finish. There's a lot of different weeds we can get into, and now's not the time or place, but it's all about getting kids to realize your relationships that you have with people that you love. It is from start to finish. You don't give up. You don't turn them in because, someone's getting older, just like grandma and grandpa. They may not be able to. They may not be able to get on the floor and play with you anymore. But there's a
Tim
life
tried
to be learned.
trade me in for 6 years, but then I just came back. So anyway, so Henry, Tim and I we have been in the middle of what we call our journey series, and they're based on part of my book that I wrote about the learned wisdoms. And what this fits into, so we just want to say thank you, is draw upon your own life experiences, personal strengths, and talents to impact another person's journey. So Henry, you encompassed all of that, your personal strengths, your life experiences, your talents, and your choosing to impact somebody who's struggling right now, public life versus private life, and how we get to still honor and be our authentic selves. So thank you so very much.
Yeah, I want to say thanks, because this whole thing for us has been, it's been a wild ride. And so for you being willing to come in and work with us as we're kind of navigating all this, I really appreciate it. And great to meet you. I hope we can meet in Nashville and, raise a glass of wine together and have a toast.
I have a feeling that's probably going to happen, Tim, because we like to get out there every couple of months. So we'll have to make it happen, Ruth.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the two of you for having me on. I think this is a great podcast. I think this is a great mission that you're on. I think there's an appetite out there for this. I think there's people that want more of this, and it's great to be a part of it. So thank you for even thinking of me to be on the podcast.
Yeah, likewise, Henry. Thank you.
Okay. Wow. Tim, we did it. Had our first guest in studio.
What a great first guest.
Oh, he was. And I just want to say, before we forget and go any further, thank you, Henry, for being so open and for taking the time to do this with us.
Yeah, I feel like he was vulnerable, and the courage involved to take the first step. He did it, man. And I applaud him. That's huge. And there's a lot of work left for him. And
a lot of work.
I hope he can push forward with how he wants to be the authentic Henry.
And I think he will. I think once you get it out there, once you admit what you're walking towards, there's no stopping him now. So I'm anxious and excited to see, follow back with him from time to time and see where he's at. And hopefully we can bring him back on as a guest, and he can boast on how good it's going. Yeah. So there was a lot of things going through my mind as he was talking, Tim. And I know as we wrap up, we don't want to keep going. But was there one thing that stood out to you more than others as he was talking?
There was, absolutely. And one thing I'd love to follow up with him is, you put him on the spot. You asked if he had listened to our podcast, and he said no. So hopefully he's listening to this. I know it's probably strange to listen to yourself being interviewed, but I want to say to him and to all our listeners, he had mentioned how things get removed from TV if there's a mention of God often. And it's when you remove it, it's like it doesn't exist. But what I want to say to Henry and to everyone else is, if you don't say anything, it really doesn't exist. If it gets removed from TV, it still exists. And I think that Henry would know he came forward as his authentic self, and he did what he felt was right, and he said what he wanted to say in the moment, and he can be proud of that. So even if he knows, like, well, I'm going to, if I say this, it's just going to be removed, that's okay, because you did it.
So it goes back to when I asked him, is there anything he would have said different, or is there something he's thought about in the car on the way home that he says, I wish I could have? What you're saying is to go ahead and say something, and then you never have to ask yourself, I should have, I could have, or have regret.
Yep. And he talked about his commute. Like, I bet sometimes when he's driving home, if he's not showing up as his authentic self, he's probably processing it and thinking about it. I wish I would have done that.
He's listening to sports radio. No,
Yeah.
he's listening to sports radio. But what if he turned off the sports radio for a drive? Ooh,
Well,
Henry, if you're
what
listening.
I mean, I can see I bet he's a convertible guy, right? I bet he's cruising home in the convertible with the top down, and he can have his song on the radio, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But he can have that song open, and he can be singing, and he can be proud of the person that he showed up as, the person that Henry wants to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
So, what is something, Ruthie, from that conversation with Henry that you are holding on to? What did you identify as maybe your top focus?
Well, I think he said it a couple of times, and I could really relate to it. Public life versus private life.
Okay.
And that how the line gets blurred. And it's my prayer, actually, that more people, my hope, that more people are able to blur the line when it comes to living out their faith with their home life and their work life.
Yeah. What do you mean by blur?
That it's okay to talk about God. He could feel free and open to talk about God when you hear a coworker who says they've just been diagnosed with something and you want to say, would it be okay if I pray with you right now? If you feel that, if you feel your authentic self, that more people would be open to blurring the lines and not be judged or looked at differently.
So, do you think that the you people
Mm-hmm.
saw publicly is the authentic you, or was the authentic you?
Oh, well, Tim, it wasn't supposed to be about me. It was supposed to be about our conversation on Henry, but no, I don't. And not that I was not my authentic self at work, because my job was not a job, but it was a lifestyle, walking alongside families. So I lived my authentic self. But when I came home, whether I was exhausted or the troubles that I had, the challenges, it was easier for me to not always live my authentic self.
Yeah, I only ask because sometimes we hold on to a conversation or a topic in a conversation because it relates to us. So thank you. How are you feeling now?
Well, I think that for me, the closer I get to God, the more that I read, the more that I understand. My goal is truly to align my values and be my authentic self and be proud of it. It's getting better and better with each passing year.
That's the way it should be. You shouldn't be going the other way.
So what about our song? You already put it on our playlist, Tim?
Oh, yeah. So he brought up a couple of songs, but the one I put on there was from Morgan Wallen. And actually, Hardy is in that song, too. I know you're a big fan of Hardy.
I am a big fan. I wasn't
He's
a big
a
fan
rocker.
until I went and saw him in concert.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Got a good range. I respect that about musicians when they can do a lot of different genres. So the song is Come Back as a Redneck by Morgan Wallen.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you? You have a scripture. You told me I was going to love it. I've been dying to hear it.
Well, after listening and really understanding, I've chosen John 3:18. Dear children, let us not love with our words or speech, but with actions and in truth.
Perfect.
Well, I think that's a wrap.
It is. And before we go, I want to ask the same question I asked you earlier, Ruthie. Where in your life do you find it hardest to be your authentic self? At home, at work, with friends? And what is holding you back?
Goodbye, friends.
Bye, everyone. We're so glad you're here. Did today's episode give you a little boost of hope and encouragement right when you needed it? If it did, we'd love it if you'd hit that like button, subscribe, and maybe even share it with someone who could use a little light today. For extra content and more from this podcast, make sure to follow us at Instagram at letitbe.podcast. And remember, there's still beauty unfolding in your story.